to sew in the 1950s when my mother and I made mother-daughter dresses, identical sleeveless, full-skirted frocks in dark blue with a tiny red and white geometric pattern. We sewed them on my mother's sewing machine at her narrow oak sewing table that was wedged at one end of an oversized closet. The clothes on the hangers above were pushed aside to give us headroom. In the early 60s, thanks to junior high school home economics, I was obliged to learn to cook and sew with my final grade depending upon making an outfit of my choosing. I decided on ivory cotton for a short-sleeved blouse to be worn under a moss green corduroy jumper. What I learned was I was not very good at sleeves, nor sewing under pressure, but nevertheless, I discovered a creative outlet which eventually allowed me to make what I wanted to wear, giving a shy, self-contained girl a voice and a means of self-expression that was otherwise elusive. At 14, I was given a small portable Singer sewing machine that folded into a case not much bigger than a tall shoebox. With a few basic patterns, access to tablecloths, sheets, and curtains stored in the attic of my family home, and the occasional yard and a half of cheap retail fabric, I could make anything I wanted to wear for basically nothing. I continued to sew into my 20s, making clothes from scratch or reconfiguring existing styles I bought in thrift shops. To this day, I still modify clothes that I buy off the rack. Over the years, in addition to all those numerous sensible skirts and dresses, there was the dress made from a red and white check tablecloth. My grandmother's brocade curtains became a prom dress. For one 4th of July, I created a skirt to look like an abstract red, white, and blue flag with a huge white star on the hip. And when living in Soho in the 70s, I combined into one 2 purple, silky vintage dresses I found in a box on the sidewalk. I loved that dress. It was effortless to wear, and it made me feel beautiful. A few years ago, while investigating a box where over the years I'd thrown costume-like props, I discovered a disintegrating, shocking pink polyester knit dress I'd made in the 60s to wear on a first date with a guy from a tonier part of town. For reasons that I now cannot comprehend, I modified that usual simplicity pattern by cutting out the midriff, leaving only 4 thin strips to tether the top and the bottom together. I then sewed pink pom-poms to the top's hem. The only thing missing was go-go boots. I'm astounded that my mother let me out of the house. I'm embarrassed for my 16-year-old self. I really can't imagine how I looked, especially with those pom-poms shifting and bobbing as I walked. But I wasn't trying to make any kind of a conscious statement. I just found the process so thoroughly engaging that I simply followed my vision and sewed. And despite some misguided design choices, those clothes were more than just something to wear. They gave me a confidence and a self-assurance that encouraged my hidden, free-spirited nature. Now my creative energy is spent constructing pieces made from other kinds of salvaged materials, and I haven't worked in fabric for years. But I wish I had scraps of my past wardrobe. I'd create a quilt, a textile timeline that when patched together would celebrate a life woven from challenge and change. And right in the center, I'd place a piece of that shocking pink knit.